Yeah, welcome to the Aro Benaiah Show, where we highlight the builders, creators, and entrepreneurs who turn ideas into impact. Today, I'm joined by Aaron Keller, co-author of Physics of Brand, co-founder of Capsule, a special project agency that partner with brands like Patagonia, Terrace, and Hydroflax, and an inventor in a range of vector. He's also the host of Think and Link podcast and someone who has bring both wit and wisdom in the world of design, creativity, and branding. Aaron, it's a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So Aaron, what was it like growing up?
I grew up in a small town in the middle of Wisconsin and spent a lot of time on horses, spent a lot of time on a farm. Um, and it was adventurous. It was, and then between that and time in the Twin Cities and the city itself. Um, so I grew up in both a very rural environment and a very urban environment.
Oh wow, amazing. Aaron, can you adjust your camera a bit so that it be above your head? Your camera.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
There.
Okay. Nice, nice. Yeah, thank
Better.
you. Yeah, amazing. It's perfect like this. All right. So, growing up, what kind of job or responsibility do you actually take up before stepping into the world of branding and design?
Um, I did a lot of internships when I was young. I worked in construction, worked in restaurants, all kinds of different things. Worked for my father for a while, and while I was going to college, and then worked at a design firm called Yamamoto Moss as working my way up from a marketing assistant to an account manager, essentially, before I started Capsule.
Wow, amazing. Which simply means those area roles of internship and working in those particular places actually shape your perspective about work and what is. Can you just share some of the experience you learned during this period of internship?
Yeah. The internship for my dad was fascinating because I got to see how people worked with him and what his style of work was and his colleagues and the culture inside an organization and how things got done. That was fascinating, not only just because I got to see my dad in a different perspective, but also because of the work itself. And then the work at Yamamoto was another layer above that, fascinating because I got to work with Hideki Yamamoto, who very much exhibited a lot of the attributes of a Japanese culture and style of work, and which is also very, very intriguing. And there are a lot of lessons to be learned and how Hideki worked, and also just how he interacted with colleagues and what he enjoyed doing, um, the values that he put forward as a founder. So
Wow, amazing, amazing. And you are not just an agency father, you are also a farm owner. How did those this connection of land influence your perspective about work and creativity?
run that question by me again. I'm not sure I got the first part of it.
Okay, I said you are not just an agency father, founder.
Yeah.
Uh, you also more like if you are also a farm owner. How did those connection of land influence your perspective about work and creativity?
Um, well, we the I the work the work of creativity for brands, for companies, infusing energy into brands for people has always been a fascination to me. An undergraduate, I was in marketing, and I was very intrigued by that. The center of commerce is marketing, right? It's the exchange. It's bringing together and creating markets. It's a pure definition of marketing in itself is to create a marketplace for something. It's pretty central to economics in many ways. And some professors of mine have talked about the fact that marketing is the real world application of economics and psychology, which kind of makes sense. And that's something I've enjoyed doing. And I also want to, moving into the world of design and seeing what design does to create attraction for things, for products, for companies, for brands, for experiences. That was also really intriguing to me. So,
Wow, amazing. Capsule has worked with big name like Patagonia and Patagonia and PepsiCo. Or what is one project that's really stand out that actually shape how you think about brand today?
one project that stood out. Um, that's a good question. We have we got this project to work through a partner with Capital One, and we got to see inside Capital One and see what it was like inside the culture, what the organization was like, and the brand that they were projecting outwardly. And in some cases, there's a large gap between what the company is really like and what they're projecting outwards as a brand. And then in some cases, what is going on inside is exactly what the brand is. And there were two clients, Fisher Price and Capital One, that I got to see the inside of, and then it wasn't vastly different, but it was different enough between what they were projecting as a brand and what they were inside. But then going in and working with Patagonia, it was the same thing. I mean, the Patagonia you see and you consume and think about and have associations with, you get there and it's consistent. It's the same thing. It's practically a commune. It's not an office building. um, if the surf is up in Ventura, California, a lot of staff is out there surfing, not at the at the office. It is very much that style and life of a business and of a brand, and they're really good at projecting that. But also, they're not projecting a falsehood because it makes it easier to project something that's real. It's harder to keep up something that is too distant from who you really are. It's a facade, and at some points in time, people see past the facade. So I find that to be a very influential perspective on brands, and you see that in big brands nowadays that put out stuff that like that doesn't fit your brand at all, and they obviously don't know themselves completely, haven't really gotten to know their own brand well enough to be able to say this is what we should be projecting out to the world. So
Wow, amazing. And being the brand, you have actually done a whole lot of branding and you have stayed in this particular office for a bit long time. So for a layman who is just hearing the word branding, if you were to actually more like describe the word branding for them, what would be your simple definition of it?
yeah, the simple definition that's often used is its reputation. So your personal brand is your personal reputation, right? And if you go way back in the history of branding, to early civilization, if someone's making olive oil on one side of the Mediterranean and shipping that olive oil across the Mediterranean to another group of people, they would stamp the vessel with the family name, right? It was the reputation of the family that represented the product itself, that the product wouldn't hurt you, and that it was of good quality and all the things. And so it started with people and their reputations and moved to families and the family's reputation, and then moved beyond the family to this larger thing that became, a brand, right? Represented in logos and represented in artifacts, but really the brand itself is the reputation of the larger organization or the specific product. Um, which that's what hopefully maintains the margins around it, that people believe in it. Now reputation seems some like on off switch kind of thing, not as maybe as gray space as really as complex as brands could be, because then you think about a reputation of one individual and then all of a sudden you've got a reputation of an entire company that can impact the brand. All these people that could do damage to a brand makes it more and more challenging. So
Wow, wow, amazing. I think before I actually like came to know the meaning of branding, I always thought branding is just more of the colors and the logos. And I think it was with time I was getting to kind of understand what actually kind of make up branding, and the fact that you actually make reference of that brand is speak volumes to reputation and and trust, which simply means logos and colors are just a representation of what that trust and what that reputation entails pictorially. And I think it's really a lovely way of actually more like describing it. So you have actually spent 25 years running Capsule. What is the biggest lessons you have learned about building and sustaining a creative business?
Um, Probably um, having just grit and resolve to get through in those tough times, and then enjoying those times that are, more reasonable, or just enjoying all the times that you're doing it. Being able to be an entrepreneur is an amazing gift. It's a it's a freedom that is absolutely amazing, and it's got certain perceptions, cultural perceptions, that people look from the outside and think that's what it is. Some people are like, well, you can work whenever you want. You don't really have to. You don't really have to work. You can have other people work for you, which is definitely a falsehood. Um, but it's just, as far as the lessons I've learned, is probably just the resolve to get through, and then to enjoy the time and the stuff that you get to do with people. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing to be able to do, but also it's challenging. Every day there's something new you have to take on, and it comes with all the challenges, and it becomes thoroughly a lifestyle. You have to see it as a lifestyle. Your brain, especially if you're doing intellectual work, your
Yeah.
brain doesn't turn off. So you're not going to be able to. I just saw, what's his name, the founder of NVIDIA, talking about work-life balance. He said, my work-life balance is great. I work all day, every day, 7 days a week. When I'm awake, I'm working. It's perfectly balanced. He said, when I'm not working, I'm thinking about working. And I'm like, that's pretty much it. Yeah. It's not that I work that many hours. I do enjoy and relax, but I don't also have the job he has, which he's chosen to sacrifice for that amazing job and that amazing amount of wealth too. You know.
Yeah. Amazing. I think your definition in respect of this just shows that meta work sometimes like branding and creativity is there's a whole lot of things that involve, which simply means there's no turn off. There is continuous process in producing the desired result you're looking at. Because sometimes I think for creative it's more even demand, because sometimes the perfect idea for the design can come up when you're in the bathroom, when you're not in office. It's just more like thinking over those particular procedures and seeing a better way to represent a brand, and you just make reference of a
Mhm.
really big volume. So looking back, were there any failure or challenge that ended up teaching you more than just teaching you more than what success did?
Um, the challenges that taught me more than what success did. Is that what you're asking? The
Yes.
um, the I would say, um, there's a lot of, you could take a lot of people's external opinions, right? You can get outside perspective on things, um, but in the end, you have to take responsibility for the decision. You have to actually make the decision, and there's millions and millions of decisions you make as a business owner, and then you have to take responsibility for it. The adventure that you have very much equates to responsibility, so you have to step in and take responsibility for those actions and for those decisions. You can blame everybody in the world. You can blame um, everybody else, but you'll never advance as an individual if you don't reflect back on yourself and say, what role did I play in that? Even if it was a small percentage of your role, right? I mean, you think about just like basic things in life. You get in a car accident, someone hit you. Yeah, someone hit you, but were you in the right spot driving, right? Should you have been there? Were you completely paying attention in that moment? There's probably some small percentage of responsibility you can take for that. And in taking that responsibility, you can learn from that. If you don't take responsibility, you can't learn from it, right? You can't take it in as a lesson. You leave it out there, project it onto someone else, which is hard. It's not easy to take responsibility because some things are painful. Like, I did that. I can do better when it comes to my next decision. Like I can learn from this and improve upon how I make decisions. So that's probably the most challenging thing and the biggest lesson I've gotten out of this.
Yeah, wow, wow, amazing. Taking responsibility. I think this really speaks volume that every success you are looking forward to actually more like boil down to you taking responsibility, taking, how will I make reference of it? Both the success that come from it and both the failure that come from it, and accepting it that you're actually more like you were more like in the driving, you're in the driver's seat and making those decisions so that at the end of the day you own it to yourself. And I think that
Yeah,
actually more like sharpens your your act of taking responsibility when those such role comes around again.
yeah.
Yeah. So trade people and small business owner often don't have big marketing budgets. What simple branding principle can you actually apply? Can they apply right away?
Um, when it comes to a small budget, the best thing you can do is what we call creative experiments. You can do essentially it's applying the methods of agile that are used in software development and applying them to marketing and perform very small experiments that have very smaller resources you could spend on them, minimum amount of time but maximum amount of creativity and maximum amount of measurement. And then by doing those experiments, you can test and learn essentially. Do something, see if it works, measure it for the things that you want to see as outcomes out of your marketing effort. So, like things like people often measure impressions, which is worthless. You want to measure activation, movement, behavior change, things that actually get to truth and to get to action. Um, but maximizing the measurement, and you can measure anything, right? You can, there's so many different things you can measure. You just have to choose to measure them and look at them. And then by, the restraint of no budget, no time, maximizes creativity by its nature because you're like, we don't have any time. We have to be very creative, and it exemplified perfectly in the pandemic, and that people got incredibly creative incredibly quickly when everything shut down. Right? I mean, retailers got creative. Brands got creative. Everyone's like, we got to do an amazing number of things. They did. They jumped into action, right? And then, of course, not long after that, we kind of forgot all that. Forgot all that,
Yeah.
and went back to a normal cadence. But that kind of energy when it comes to limited resources and limited time pushes you to be very creative with what you're going to do. So that's what I strongly recommend for people when they don't have a lot of budget to work with. So
Wow, wow, amazing, amazing. Thanks for that particular candid advice. So if how can everyday entrepreneur cultivate our creativity? Because if for those who haven't actually engaged it, most times the word creativity can look more like a big word for them, and they would often some person doesn't even know how to get started or what it actually even demand when it comes to uh patterning their business or doing what they do. So what more like what would your advice be for everyday entrepreneur? How can they actually engage the word creativity into what they do?
yeah, yeah. A couple of things that one, the essence of creativity is connecting two divergent things, right? So this plus this equals something new in some form. Finding those two things and identifying them and trying to match them up is it's a constant sifting process in your head around what if this, I put this with that, right? And so you need to gather a lot of those things. You're constantly observing patterns in life. You're observing patterns in your business. You're observing patterns in your customers and how they behave, right? And those are the types of things you look at and try to map together, right? And that is the essence. And then you need, with the essence of creativity, you also need inspiration. So you have to find a place, a muse. Your muse might be God or some higher power in your life, something bigger than you. It might be nature. Some people choose that. Some people choose reading as their muse. It just depends, but you have to have something that allows your subconscious to process things, takes you away from the day to day, and takes you into a different environment. Travel is another one that people use a lot as a really good, because it takes you into a new environment, kind of like going into nature does. You know, it takes you out of context and gets your brain working in a different way. So I find you need a muse, and then you need a process that's behind that, essentially, to get at creativity and to create for yourself and for your team, or for whatever you're looking at.
Wow, wow, amazing. Thank you for that. I think the fact that
Yeah.
when you mention yeah, when you actually mention that creativity is more like the connection between one or two things, it just speaks volumes to creativity can actually be more like a way of saying, how do I connect this particular service that I want to offer to my clients to this particular thing that they like better, to this particular pain point that they have, in a way like we're displaying it to them in a place where they might laugh over it, but at the end of the day, they get the message. Or more like it might actually more like speak volumes to the fact that the pain point is more like be actually shine light on, and at the end of the day, they see the product you are bringing in to serve as solution to that particular pain point. And you just make a difference that creativity is more like a connection between different. It actually more like speak volume in respect of that. So you talk about innovation and design being a perfect pairing. Why do those two disciplines matter so much together?
um, Innovation and design are like peanut butter and jelly. Innovation is really for the corporation. It's the technical side of creativity. It's they both exhibit creativity. Design and innovation have creativity at their roots, but innovation is more for the corporation, and design is more for the person or the human. And so you can create something through a process of innovation, a new product, a new something or other, that can exhibit all the attributes that you want, but not be properly designed for a person. Right? It's something that does something new that even might fit a specific need, a purpose in someone's life, but it's still not designed just for them. Right? And then, I mean, you can, if you look at, like, right now, a good example of that is, the Post-it note brand, the Post-it note as an innovation and as a design. There's a whole history around that, and Art Fry and the design of the Post-it note, and the particular size it was, right? It was just a very condensed size of a note. Nowadays, they have Post-it notes that are the big, wall ones you can peel off. If that was the first product that came out, it would have been far less successful as a thing, because that's designed for meetings, for a group of people. It's not designed for an individual. Someone thoughtfully, Art Fry thoughtfully designed, when you use this glue to create something that is a sticky that individuals will use on or around their computer to organize their daily life. And so it was designed for a person, someone he had in mind that's going to use this, and predominantly people that do administration work, right? That are admins that are working in, keeping track and organizing things. It fit them really well. So he designed it for them. It was an innovation, and it was part of 3M, right? It had all kinds of technical specifications as far as its innovation, but it was designed specifically for an audience. So design is for the people, innovation is for the corporation.
Oh,
That's
amazing.
my
Perfect explanation of this. I think I actually understood this particular thing of being that as a company, as a corporation, you can actually like innovate a particular thing, into what you want to achieve. But at the end of the day, you must design having a person behind what the end goal, not just more like to innovate things, but at the end of the day, the user experience should be something they are willing to kind of love and use effortlessly. Yeah. So, what is the biggest branding mistake you see founders and entrepreneurs make today?
oh. Um, I find the biggest um, branding mistake that people use or do today is, it's spending on or doing things that haven't been thought through, haven't been, just considered in a small, thoughtful manner. It's easy. It's easy to spend money. It's easy to go, let's just do something, anything at all, and try to just as best you can grab attention and not be thoughtful about the brand you're building. Um, and it seems to be more prevalent in bigger brands nowadays, trying to do collaborations, trying to do big rebrands. They don't really spend some time in consideration for their audience, for who they're speaking to, what's going on in their lives. Um, and it's almost disrespectful of their audience in some ways to be doing that. And so I find that just being able to do that, spend a little bit more time is a resource as well as obviously financial resources, but rushing too quickly on the bigger stuff, the smaller stuff can move fast, but the bigger stuff is, you got to be thoughtful about it. The bigger changes, I should say. So
Wow, amazing. Not thinking through the kind of change they actually want to create. It really speaks volume that as a brand, we need to think over what we actually want to put there, since brand is more of reputation and trust. So just coming out with any idea that has not been thought through at the end of the day will not represent the brand well. So many of my you have built a team culture at Capsule. What advice will you give to young entrepreneur or trade people about creating strong culture in a small team?
yeah. Obviously, articulating a perspective on where we're going, outlining a good, solid set of values that you've articulated. What's challenging about putting forth values is they have to come from you. If you're going to put forth a set of values, especially if you're a founder or a pair of founders, they need to come from you. It's going to be hard to exhibit values that don't fit you, right? Um, and so you need to have those outlined for the team so they know and can understand, like, this is the domain we're working in. It's not that all the other values in the world don't apply. It's just that there's set that are more important to us. That helps definitely in building a culture. And then the other piece is accountability, making sure that something is driving accountability internally and externally. So in our case, it's our clients. Our clients keep us accountable to delivering results, right? And they keep us accountable not only because they pay us, but because those stories that we have for success, the things that we've done successful for clients, becomes the stories we use in the future. So they become our case studies. They become our most valuable resource. And our team knows that that's what we're trying to build. And we review every client relationship and every project afterwards to go through, like, is this a story? Did we build a story here that's going to be valuable for them and valuable for us? And that is absolutely critical. In order to have a culture, you got to have a culture of accountability. Otherwise, culture is not pool tables and ping pong tables and Friday afternoons off and those types of things. Those are nice to have. A good, strong culture is is delivering on the promises of the company and the promises of the brand, and doing it within those set of values, essentially, that you've outlined. So
Amazing. I think it just speaks volumes to when you actually kind of make reference of culture, you make reference of the fact that not just copying from any other single persons, but it should be the fact that the founder actually might like think about the value system and yeah, they know what they actually want to come into behind. Because if they could actually start better from that, I think accountability owing to the various stories of their delivery to their various customer is going to kind of push what the required result is going to be owing to the level of service you have been delivering to various clients once you actually set the value right. Yeah, thank you so much, Aaron.
yeah.
Yeah, trust in brand is declining in our society today. How can business, whether large or small, any genuine trust from their community?
Yeah, it is. Trust is declining for sure. Trust is declining in the institutions across the board, and which is um, sad because central to strong brands is trust. And I firmly believe, especially as you look at it through the lens of big companies, like people that are managing brands inside of big companies, right? They're publicly traded. They've got the quarterly system that's pressuring them for results, and they're having to make sacrifices along the way, right? They're having to deteriorate quality. They're having to put out messages that are inappropriate, or they believe they have. They really don't. If they step back and hold firm on, no, this is something that is, we are a valuable asset in the community, and see themselves as brand owners. They refer to people that manage brand as brand owners, taking ownership of the brand, taking responsibility for the brand, and putting your love and care into that brand that you're building. Because if you do that, it will be seen. People will get that, and you can see that. And Apple is used as an example in so many different things. But there's a lot of people that had a very emotional response to Steve Jobs dying because they felt him, they connected with him because he put love into those products,
Mm.
right? I mean, he put love into that brand, and there's a lot of other examples out there in the world of people that put love into the brands that they build. It's usually the owner of the brand or the founder of the brand, and then as it gets bought or as it moves inside of an organization or gets changed, it loses a lot of that love, right? And it's getting back to taking ownership. That's going to do a lot to engender trust, right? And also the behaviors that come from saying, I want this brand to be loved. I love this. I am building a strong brand that should be considered from that perspective. Um, it's going to keep you from doing things that are inappropriate for the brand, right? That don't fit the brand, that abuse the brand itself, or try to fool the audience in some way. That is not an appropriate thing, and marketing is not, foolery. It
Yeah.
isn't trying to rip people off, but it's often perceived as that, right? Marketing and advertising is trying to tell you something to get you to buy something, right? Lie to you to get you to buy something. My kids even say that, right? I'm like, I'm literally not in that business. But it is very much, what the culture is telling you. And the best brands are managed more appropriately. They're managed by people who believe they are brand owners, right? Who take on an ownership mentality. So,
Wow. I think this really speaks volume, taking ownership mentality because yeah, it's at the end of the day, every single brand, despite they now become more like a corporate setting, at the end of the day, it still boils down to the single person who is actually more like spearheading that particular brand. Because over time, I even got to discover that a whole lot of accounts, let's say corporate accounts, who has, let's say, social media like Twitter and Instagram, I discover at the end of the day, people don't follow much of those corporate businesses in their numbers compared to the real owner of the particular business running it. So it's as though more like so when you look at brand most times in terms of corporate brand, you see that it might be 1,000 follower and the person more like taking ownership of the brand can have like 10,000, which simply means people are looking forward to see uh to the rates they take ownership of that particular business and what they are doing constantly towards moving that particular brand forward, which actually speaks to months of kind of reputation and trust.
hmm yeah, yeah. People follow people. They struggle to follow brands, right? Unless brands exhibit the human attributes that they really should have, because that brand came from a person. It's an extension of that person
Yeah.
who originally created it, right? And then someone bought it from them, but they should be taking ownership of it. They didn't just buy an asset, right? They bought a member of the community, and they should be thinking about it in that higher order kind of way versus we just bought an asset and we don't really, we're just going to milk it for whatever we can, right? As a brand, which is sad because it's more
Yeah.
that's the case, right? It's like, well, we're going to milk it. We're going to grab as much margin as we can. We're going to take all the cost out and do everything we can to make a huge profit off of this brand. And yeah, that's, people see that. They might not explicitly see that, but they get the sense of that, right?
So true. Sorry. So what role has mentorship played in your career, and how can young professionals seek out meaningful mentorship?
God has been, I've had both the, people that I've mentored who have had influence over me, and people that who've been mentors to me. I don't do it as in an overly formal way. Because I think when you say we've entered into a relationship of mentorship, now all of a sudden you've defined the boundaries of that relationship. You've said, no, this is mentorship. So this is the exchange we're going to have. I found it better that I look to people as my mentors and I seek them out, that I seek out their advice. I spend time with them to learn from them, right? And I refer to them as my mentors to other people, but not to them ever, because I don't want them to feel like they've got an obligation to me to be my mentor, right? I don't want it to turn into a transaction. I just want it to be an opportunity for me to learn from what they do and their advice. So I seek that out in my community of people. And now I've gotten to an age and an amount of gray hair that it's more that I am, looking to do that for others. It's not that I have a tremendous amount of time for it, but anytime one of our clients or our friends, as my son or daughter, is looking for, just someone to get some advice from, I'll spend that time. Like I have one coming up on Monday, and I love doing that. I love seeing where they are, because if I can give them just a little bit of a nudge and a different perspective and give them a view on what the future looks like, where they might go to school, where they might start their career, these types of things, I know it can have a huge influence, because it did for me. I had a number of people that early in my life, and there was an entrepreneur I met. I don't even remember his name. It was part of a program we did at school. We had to go out and meet mentors and connect with people. And I connected with this guy, and he said, you have to figure out, if you're ever going to be an entrepreneur, which didn't really aspire to be an entrepreneur, but he said, if you're ever going to be an entrepreneur, you got to be able to balance your sleep. You got to be able to, have a really tough day and go to sleep at night peacefully, and have a really good day and go to sleep at night, to balance that stuff out. And I said, if you don't, this profession will put you in the ground. It will bury you. You will not live a healthy lifestyle if you don't. And that was hugely influential on me. It kind of just stuck with me as like, I got to find that proper balance. Otherwise, you can be all consumed by entrepreneurship for sure. Because it's like you can work all the time. I can find something to do every day, all day, no problem, right? And in a very unrelenting kind of manner. Or I can try to live a more balanced life. And he was a really good early lesson in that. So that's how I think of mentorship, and that's how I treat it on my side. I don't have any formal mentorship, mentee relationships at all. So.
Wow, wow, amazing, amazing. Yeah. So you have been an author, agency founder, and podcast host and investor. How did you decide what opportunity to pursue part time?
The as we get opportunities like the opportunity to author books, that came about. Honestly, I didn't expect to ever author a book. And if you talk to my freshman year English teacher, he would have said the same thing, that I would never author a book. But we got approached, and it's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity to think through a lot of things. The process of writing something down is a process of thinking and analyzing something, and you're putting something in the Library of Congress. It's kind of it's a pretty big obligation to put something proper down on paper and to be printed in a book. So it taking on that responsibility and that adventure at the same time. So those things that have that make it intriguing to us. And then like the podcast speaker series, that started off as what we refer to, or what is referred to as a French style salon. So it was a discussion about the topics of the day with a small group of people in our kitchen. And we we connect a lot of people. People reach out to us and want to connect with our community. We help them connect on jobs and opportunities. And we do that all the time. It's our way of paying it forward. And this was our way of doing that, but doing it in a slightly larger scale, going from one-on-one to, 1-on-10 or maybe 15.
Yeah,
And then of course it grew to 50 people standing room only in our office. And then the pandemic hits and it goes completely digital. And then it grew as well. So it was more of, I've also found recently that I really only can do three things at a time professionally. So I have to keep, three things. And if we use the metaphor of juggling, I can only juggle three balls. Some people can juggle like a lot more. Like Elon Musk, I don't know how he juggles all that he juggles. I don't understand it. I appreciate that alone for the juggling that he does. I can juggle three at a time. And so we have a podcast speaker series, I'm working on a book, and we have the agency. Those are the three that I'm juggling. And I will probably always have those three unless there's something else that comes into the mix, who knows? But no more than three, I find, is the best I can accomplish.
amazing. So what was your experience writing the physics of brand? Like, did it like it did change? How did you actually view work after writing that particular book?
That that was an extreme challenge. It didn't start off as a book. Started off as an article. Started off as a conversation around a bunch of two professionals, two of us, Dan Wallace and myself, and then Renee Marino was added later. She's actually the physicist in the mix, so she brought the physics to the table in a real way and measuring the value of brands. It started off in these early conversations around the ones that are out there that value brands or put an asset value to brands had a lot of flaws. And we started exploring, well, if you're going to really do this right, you're going to go to the math of physics. Yeah, which everything can go through the math of physics. Physics is the math of nature. It's the math of everything, really. And so we're like, yeah, that's great. But neither of us had a background in physics. We just appreciated physics. We like to watch, documentaries on physics and read books about the theories of physics, but we didn't actually practice the discipline. So Renee, adding her to the equation, we would throw out there these marketing things, just different little shortcuts in marketing, and she would bounce back to us on how that relates to models and physics. So it had a profound impact on how I think, how I see the world of brands, and because there's the social sciences side of it, which I totally appreciate and have always loved. And then there's the physical sciences of it, and applying those has just added a totally different dimension that really wasn't fully there for me. And the Physics of Brand book brought that to the table in a big way. It helped me see the things that, you're like, well, that kind of broke. That didn't work. And you can look to the math of physics and find out, well, it was never going to work. If you did the math, you would have seen
Yeah.
it was never going to work, right? That was never going to happen. Um, Not without a lot of time and a lot of resources. So yeah, it had just, and just like I said, on the writing of things, the processing of, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to be able to do, to be able to write a book of that substance. And the wonderful reviews that we got on it, and what it did as far as the book tour, and it was specifically because it's such a very narrow book. It's not just about brand; it's about the valuation of brands. It's a very, very narrow area for people, right? But of course, we definitely positioned it as, it's like the value of brands, not in the sense of like the asset value only, but like what role do they play in people's lives and community and business and government, and they should be arbiters of trust, right? And they should be the better version of us, is what brands should be. If they're extensions of us, they should be the best version of us, if possible. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Aaron. So, looking at the next generation of creative agency, what do you think will define their success?
I think the temptation of digital and social, and being able to not be tempted by only living in digital and social, and being able to balance both the physical world that brands live in and the digital and social worlds that brands live in. I think the profound amount of constraint that's not even really seen within social and digital is not healthy for brands and for creative agencies, right? Not that these are incredibly powerful tools, but they are not everything to a brand. We need to go far beyond those, because these platforms run into all kinds of other issues, and the algorithms change and other things. I think that's a big piece. I think, of course, AI is a big piece, and figuring out the balance between the probabilistic nature of AI, the deterministic piece of it, and then also the human element, and having that triad happen within how you bring AI into your world, how that influences brands. Because it's very easy for a lot of brands to find the efficiency route and the very artificial route, right? If all you have is artificial influencers, after a while, I don't
Yeah.
know, it just becomes shallow, becomes, it's not I don't know, it doesn't seem like a future I want to be a part of. I want to see real people doing real things. And, but it's going to be very tempting because of the efficiency of influencers, and very tempting to fool people, right? To get into that world of marketing is really good at fooling people, right? And I think it's a slippery slope when you start to try to fool people every day with your marketing, right? So either some point in time you get regulated that you have to tell the truth, like when influencers had to mention that this was a sponsored post or things like that, right? Because they didn't really like the product; they were just getting paid by the product. That's just trying to fool an audience, and then you can either get regulated or the culture regulates you, right? The culture pushes back and says, you're lying to us, and we don't want that in our lives. So anyway, it's going to be interesting to the future of creativity and agencies, and their relationship with brands, and how they hold brands to a higher standard, hopefully, and bring new creativity to their world.
Wow.
That's my view, at least.
I think your answer just speaks volume to the fact that as much as a whole lot of tools are coming into being, that creates artificial kind of influences, we should stay grounded to the human side of things, where authenticity and trust actually speak volume to or what we are trying to kind of influence our audience over, not just for the sake of making the more couples of dollars at the end of the day, but towards the fact that the brand is the product is tested, and yeah, to a larger extent is actually doing very well, other than at the end of the day using the artificial side to just win score, and which later on to make human side get to hit the brand, and yeah, very very difficult to actually recover from. Yeah, thank you. So if
Hmm.
you were to give your younger self one piece of advice about building a career around creativity business, what would it be?
Oof. That's a tough one. Yeah, I would. I'm not sure my younger self would have listened to me. Honestly, my younger self, my younger self, like really, really confident. I don't know who you are and why you're giving me advice. Um, but if I did, it probably that, like, being patient, being more patient with the people around you, let them develop, let them figure it out, spend more time coaching and getting people to move along in their role faster. Yeah, I was probably that, because it is some of the challenging things in entrepreneurship is you have to have patience for things to play out, and sometimes your impatience gets ahead of itself, right? The culture around it, you want to have financials show up, all those types of things. And I would probably just say it's, just an exhibit like a little bit more patience, not 1,000%, but just like 10%. I probably could convince my younger self of that at least, right? Without him rejecting me completely. So
Well, amazing. Being patient. I think it really speaks volume across the different thing you're going to do. Being patient and lecture others. Be patient towards others too, in terms of either your employees or those you are working out from, in respect of the outcome you desire them to kind of come up with. Being patient and coach them and work on them, and at the end of the day, everything will work very fine. So, Aaron, tell us about yourself and how can my audience learn from you, and how can they do business with you or reach out to you?
yeah. You can reach out to us at capsule.us. You can find us there at our info at. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Aaron J. Keller, I believe is my handle on LinkedIn. I'm also on X and on Instagram. But you can also find within our website our Think and Link podcast. If you go in on that, you'll see our events, our past speakers, all of our people on that. Yeah, those are the best ways to probably to reach out to us and connect with us and any number of things. Happy to have a conversation.
All right, all right. Aaron, thank you. It has really been a refreshing and insightful conversation from redefining what a brand really means to showing us how creativities and design of where real business growth. You have given us plenty to think about. For our listener, if you can learn more from Aaron's work at Capsule US / about, and check out about his book, The Physics of Brand, for a deeper dive into how brands really work. And also, thank you for tuning in to the Aro Benaiah Show. Remember, whether you are building with your hands, your ideas, or both, your stories and your brand matters. Until next time, keep creating, keep inspiring, and keep moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Arrow.